Hi guys, it's me, and of course it is, well, it's the 4th of May, um, and I'm going to be rehashing briefly, and by the way, this sun's going to be coming in, so I might get a little washed out. Um, I got the studio lights in to compensate if it gets too dark, if the sun hits a cloud, but I can't do anything to get washed out except to adjust the lens and the camera, so if you wonder why the picture washes out, it's because we gotta deal with the sunlight coming in as well as everything else. So, according to Jonathan Ung, he asked me, I enjoyed your video, Locus of Reality versus Dimensions of Consciousness. Thank you. Can you explain more on this topic? What do you mean by separation from the whole? What are the rules of the road? How do we create, and when does creation begin? Is it driven by our thoughts, our fears, our desires, our feelings? How does co-creation work? What are the limitations in creation? How easy would it be to create a reality that sounds far-fetched? Is there an interaction between other dimensions and the creatures in the creation of our reality? Well, I responded to him in a message, but I'm going to also read to you here on camera as well, and then we'll try to explain if there's any confusion. I responded, that was not one of my best videos. It was quite a hack job, quite honestly. Nonetheless, let's see if I can explain it. The human existence is more than what the average person sees. It is as if we are in this little box. For most of us, that box is four-dimensional of length, width, height, and time. We are not usually aware of the fact that we live in a multi-dimensional universe. Because of this, we are usually unaware of the other dimensions above the fourth dimension. The rules of the road, just as I gave an example of a driver on a highway and how they interact with other drivers. Well, when we interact with other people, we have some rules that we agree on. For example, if the sun is out and the air is warm, most of us would agree it would be a good idea for a picnic or to play outside. We all agree that the leaves are green and that the sky is blue. This is called group consensus. Maybe to you, your sky is brown and the leaves are blue, but more than likely you would agree with the group, as more than one person agreeing makes it seem that it has to be correct. A totally blind person's perception is more abstract to a sighted person, as they cannot see green or blue or anything. I'm talking about the totally blind since birth. The act of creating actually begins as you said. One comes up with an idea based on what they see. Then they begin the process of making that idea into a reality through the actions of creation. Co-creation is when two or more are working towards the completion of the result of collaboration of an idea. The idea of creation actually is a fifth dimensional construct. It is one of the most understood of the higher levels of consciousness. We don't really think about it in that way, but to get an idea means you need to examine multiple dimensional concepts of the solution. Let me give you an example of what Lumi and I are working on. We have this old Dell Dimension 2500 desktop. Long ago, the heatsink's clip snapped off. Right now, we are holding the heatsink on with wire and Elmer's glue. Oh, it is kludgy and the processor has to be throttled down, as Elmer's isn't the best for heatsink grease. We thought of and visualized other ways to fasten the heatsink. Zip ties, bolts through the original heatsink mounting plate, new replacement clip holders. To do that, we have to visualize the different ways, and then we can decide which would be the better choice given the costs and the fact that the built-in video controller is crappy, and thus this makes this a poor machine for X Windows under Linux in accelerated video modes. We are thinking of just getting a new board in the future. there is almost always interaction between dimensions. When we are asleep, we can travel to these alternative dimensions. Those of us who have mastered astral travel and astral projections can do so in the waking state as well, to create our own subjective reality. It seems too far-fetched is fairly easy, but because we live and interact with others, we often need to play by the agreed rules of the road, as I mentioned earlier. And I said here, I am going to work on a new updated video to explain this stuff better. Okay, so let's do that. Taking the question that he broke down in pieces here. First of all, I really appreciate that you commented to me, Jonathan. I really do appreciate that. Okay, Locus of reality versus dimensions of consciousness. Everything that we do around the world or in our lives, in most human beings, as I said, see things as 4 dimensions. Okay? Now, to understand that, let's talk about something that has 4 dimensions. Okay? Length, width, and in this case, height. Okay? These are the 3. Well, what would time be? Imagine this candle holder, if you will, that this candle holder, looking back from the creation of this cube to when they drilled the hole, originally make it, and then burned my very first candle in it. And you can visualize as we can go through like a cartoon or animation. And that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about the 5th or the 4th dimension, which is time. Everything starts at time 0. Now, time 0 in this case would be like you start with a blank cube of wood. Okay, I'm going to start with that. And I'm going to talk about where we cut it off another piece of wood. Okay, start with a blank cube of wood. Okay, and then at time, say 5 minutes, you see the hole drilled. And then time plus 2 weeks, we see the first candle burn. And then we can see that this same wood, in a period of time, in this case about 370 days, you see it go from one state to another state. It's the same piece of wood. It hasn't changed other than the wax dripping on it and things like that. So in other words, if it's in the same space and nothing else changed, then we could say that is the 4th dimension. 5th dimension. In the 5th dimension plane, there might be this cube of wood could easily change to a piece of foam. Because in the 5th dimension, there might actually be, in the multidimensional universe, there may not be this, but there may be this. Okay? It's different sizes, different dimensions, different height, different thicknesses. Okay? This is what we mean by 6th or 5th dimension. 6th goes further because we can start to see not only the multidimensional universes, but we can go further into how they all interact and how they interplay. Okay? So now, I'm going to keep it down to 6th right now. I'm not going to go any higher than 6th because I think it's confusing. You're talking about galactic consciousness and planetary consciousness, and of course, godlike consciousness, which is the 12th level, which is pretty high up there. Obviously, the 13th level will be where Mother and Father God are. So I'm not going to go there. So human beings can technically are 4th dimensional in a 3-dimensional realm. The 4th, which is time, is not really so understandable. But like I said, if you take a piece of motion picture film, okay, and you instead of running it through a projector, and you looking at the individual stills of the frame, which is 24 frames per second, that each frame of the film is going to show a snapshot of a 24th of a second of what's going on in front of you. If you're watching this video, you really think about it, this video is being shot at 25 frames per second in PAL. Okay, so 25 frames per second means that 1/25th of a second you see an action. Another 25th of a second, you'll see another the action. So let's say, for example, if I'm like drawing a circle, 1/25th of a second, you might see this, way down to. It might actually be drawing a lot faster. It might be drawing about this fast, but we can look at the time in stop motion. That's exactly what time is. But time is not discrete elements, okay? In other words, it's not like on a quartz watch where you see the second hand go tick, 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 tick. It's more like smooth rotations, like on an electric clock. Okay? So that's how a creation of ideas actually, as I said, is a fifth dimensional idea. We actually start to realize that we can begin to conceptualize. That's the main word here. Conceptualize. Because every single idea, every single pieces all start with, an idea. If you ever read any books by Piers Anthony, his Xanth series, there's a girl whose name is Princess Ida. Now, Princess Ida is her ability is the idea, huh? Well, read a book, you'll understand more about what Princess Ida is and what she can do. How anything that somebody sums up an idea or concept, it becomes an idea, which means it comes into existence to Ida because her ability to allow people to transpose different dimensions of reality. Really a very interesting book series, by the way. It is a whole series of books by Piers Anthony. It's wonderful books. And also, we originally had, it's on the shelf right now. I'm not going to go dig it out right. I mentioned about that those flyers or what dimensions of reality is. The whole point of what I'm trying to get at is the idea of reality, as I said, is subjective. There's no two people see the world the same way. Okay, let's just keep it on the mundane level right now. Okay, we'll leave the higher dimensions of beyond the fourth for another topic. Okay, if, like I said in my video, if I see the sky is brown and my leaves and my trees are blue, but everybody else around me says no, the sky is blue and the leaves are green, that means that because of my eyesight, that my knowledge of the world around me is incorrect. But then again, imagine for the blind perspective for a minute. This is a beautiful example because this is exactly what happens. A blind person who's blind from birth does not have any way of seeing color. They never know what color is. To them, it's abstract. Okay? And I said, oh, look, the sky is blue, and the grass is green, and the tree trunks are brown. They're going to go, they don't mean nothing to me. They're just, doesn't mean nothing to me. It's just words. I have no idea what that means in colors because I can't see colors. And that's exactly where a blind person's sense of reality, because one of the missing five senses, means that their whole world is around the other four. Okay? Feel, which is touch, taste, smell, and hearing. Now take Helen Keller out. She couldn't see and she couldn't hear. She was only lived on 3 senses. And Mrs. Sullivan had a double the time teaching Helen Keller how to interact with these 3. Touch, smell, and taste. So if Miss Sullivan was trying to show Helen water, she couldn't say in the manual alphabet, this is water because it's abstract to Helen Keller. She didn't know what water was. All she knows is, but when Mrs. Sullivan put her hand under the pump as she was pumping the water, and Helen felt the water coming out of the pump head, she said, "Now I understand what I'm feeling is water." Well, what if it was vodka? Well, she probably would know. You probably would notice it feels a little different, or it smells a little different than water, right? So, because she was lacking the sense of hearing and the sense of sight, her whole reality was different. Now, I got a cataract in my right eye. If I look at the world through my right eye, for example, all I see is a giant haze. I can't see everything clear. And in some ways, the world looks almost like it's bisected. It's almost like it's split. But I look through this eye, everything is sharper and clearer, and I can see good. See, the point is because of that right versus left eye thing, my brain has to create its own sense of reality of what it sees. It takes the vision from the bad eye, my right eye, my vision from my good eye, which is my left eye, and then it combines the two pictures as best as it can process it into the world I see in, it's not perfect, but it's pretty much the way it is. And for those of you who don't know, yes, I am an albino, and yes, I am legally blind. And guess what? I'm sorry to say that, okay? A lot of you probably wonder why I do not always read off pages of paper on the printer or on screen. It's because of my eyesight makes it almost impossible. This is fairly normal point type size. This is not super shrunk down or minuscule or lottery ticket size. Okay, this is about 8 points, maybe 10 points. Okay, and the problem is I can't read that far away. If I was to read like this, I couldn't even tell you anything it says. That's because my locus of reality says, for me, I read this, I have to get right smack dab on top of the page. Whereas somebody with 20/20 vision who has good reading ability can probably go, oh, okay, I could read it like this, I can read it like this, but then I probably need that's probably because I have farsighted. But for me, I have to read it almost like this. That means that my world I see is going to be a little different than somebody else's world. But we all have agreed that there are some conventions that usually are applied, just like the rules of the road. Which means, for example, like I said about the colors, but also how we behave. For example, we know if we're in a funeral home, for example, and a memorial service, that we're not going to sit there and bring in a big ghetto blaster and try to say, hey, let's wake up the dead, man. Let's blast this sucker. We have, again, the rules that say no, group conscience says this is the time we pay our final respects for the people who have moved to the other side of what is going on. And obviously you can see the clouds on the sun fan the cloud again. Okay, so we also agree that we need to have respect for example, for the elderly and for the infirm. This is, again, these are the rules of the road, rules of society, as somebody will talk about. Is that you do things based on what you see around you, okay, and based on what the group says is to be this way. Because in order to be a functioning member of society, we have to go by these rules. And I'm gonna, what I should do is I should open this up and stop. Why don't you? Okay, I will do that. So now, actually, one of the things I'd love to show you is how we do these videos. Because, so let me just go ahead and make this lens one more step here. There we go. That's better. That's one of the things, like I said, is now the sun's behind a cloud and it's getting later in the day. The sun's going to be going down soon anyway. So right now the studio lights are filling in for the, and they're not as bright as the natural sun. So, but I can't do anything about that because I just promised I'd get this out. Um, so yeah, okay. Can we travel to other dimensions? Yeah, we do. Actually, a lot of us do it when we're sleeping. When we're in a sleeping state, that's when our mind is allowed to be for the temporarily unshackled from this husk we call a body. Okay? We don't have to worry about taking the baggage with us. Or spiritual energy, we can go anywhere. And as we return to our spiritual dimensions, we begin to see. We can easily walk into different dimensions like I can walk into different rooms. And that is where, again, the locus of reality and dimensions of consciousness work together. In other words, everything that we see depends on, the way we interact with the dimensions around us. We interact with them, and people of those dimensions, interact with us as well. It's a really great topic. The problem is what I ran into when I got so hamstrung about was I had to hack that video together with so many pieces. It just kind of looks really kind of patchy. And so at this time, hopefully, when I make this a more finished looking video, it's going to have the nice, more polished look to it. I'm even going to leave that segment in where I was adjusting the camera because I want you to see how things are done here in the video, especially when it's at the time of this spur of the moment. Also, really quickly, we have gotten the Dell 2500 up and operational for now, even though I'm using Elmer's glue and baling our electrical wire to hold the heatsink onto the processor. It is working. Unfortunately, sometimes the computer motherboard feels that the processor is running a little bit too hot, and it starts to throttle it down a bit to handle the heat. We're going to be replacing that board eventually, so I don't think it's going to be a big deal to fix it right now. But that's what we came up with for a solution. So remember, when you get ideas, it's often because you're exploring without knowing it, without really thinking about it. When you get an idea in your mind's eye, it's because you often are taking ideas from the fifth dimension. And also, don't forget that sixth is also involved as well. But since the fifth is most commonly when we think about, the sixth is where we start to get into creating things out of thin air, which is to do with sorcery and magic. But it also means that we see the world more like a playful way. It's like being a little kid again. Doing the equivalent of playing with crayons or blocks. Toys. You don't really think about what you're doing when you start blocks up on top of each other and then you knock them down with your fingers. But when you get into this upper dimensions, especially in the sixth level, you do this. Because now you start to see, oh wow, I got all this stuff to play with. It's like being in a big giant toy store. I can do all this stuff. I can look at this over here. I can look at this over here. I can think. I can talk. I can watch this video game over here. I can play with this doll over here. I can put this doll in the video game. I can, I'm saying is we just start to begin to create. And that's when we get excited. But we are at this point, at the sixth level, by the way, is we're kind of very new at it. So we don't really start to perfect our skills until we go to the seventh dimension. Then we start to get into the more advanced stuff. Sorcery usually involves work starting on the sixth. And then by the ninth level, which is pretty rare, most people don't even usually get to ninth level. Octarines are sixth. Okay. I'm going beyond that. I'm going into the ninth level. But sometimes it's just like trying to explain it to people is challenging enough. And I really have to admit, I will keep trying to explain it. That's just me, you know. So, Mr. Jonathan Ung, I really hope that this kind of, and along with the comments I originally gave you, helps to understand things a bit more. I certainly do appreciate your comment, and I hope that you will do me a favor and keep watching our videos. And don't forget to like, share, and you already subscribed, so don't worry about that. But let your friends know about my work, and me and Lumi will be working on some more videos because this summer, and I don't do any winter work. I mean, it's summer coming up. Right now, we're still technically in spring. This year, temporarily, I'm acting as a spring stewardess as well as, of course, North American Snow Queen in the wintertime. So I'm kind of working on two things at once. But next year, I will be pretty much just doing winter weather, and then I'll have the other 9 months out of the year to focus more detail on these topics. When I'm not worrying about weather, I can focus on the dimensional travel stuff. So for right now, anyway, I'll talk to you soon. So again, if you want to reach me, you can contact me through this channel here in the comment section. You can contact me through email at BICHELA3@gmail.com. You can contact me through Google Voice at 860-469-2821. You can reach me through my TTY service for the deaf, which is you just speak. It has a human operator that types what you're saying, and then I'll get it. It's area code 860-469-4116, and that's one way to reach me as well. I got a whole bunch of other ways. You'll find them in the contact information in the credits that I'm going to put up. And until then, talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.